Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 9, Episode 112. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for tuning in this Friday. Steelers Nation, again, we'll go back to our usual two-a-day schedule for next week and for the foreseeable future. But to round out things for this week and kind of recover the draft talk, and a lot to get into today. We'll try to keep this thing under 90 minutes. But, Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'll do my best to I'll do my duty to try to keep it about 90 minutes here.
I know your fingers are crossed right now.
On this Friday, I'm like a pastor in a Roman Catholic church. Take my watch off. It don't matter no more, you know.
I had a Catholic church wedding, and hey, I was happy for the couple, but it was brutal.
It can be. Those in funerals. I mean, a Catholic church will celebrate pretty much damn near anything, as I can attest growing up in such a household there. But yeah, it is Friday, and we're starting to come off of the draft high, I suppose. And look, we got a little bit of breaking news this morning, but it's really not so much breaking, I don't guess, to a lot of people who religiously pay attention to what's going on with the Steelers and obviously this podcast and all. But the Steelers will not pick up the fifth-year option of cornerback Artie Burns. Alex, give me a hot take here.
Water is wet, and Artie Burns is not going to be the fifth-year option yet. Today was the deadline for teams to decide whether to pick up the fifth-year option, and obviously the Steelers weren't. I guess there can be a discussion to be had about Burns' future. When we get into your roster prediction a little bit later in the show, maybe there's a bit of a debate there, but there's no debate that they were not going to pick up his option, and now it's just about trying to see if Burns can make this team and I don't want to even say salvage at this point, but just do something with his career as a Steeler in 2019.
Yeah, there's been a less obvious forthcoming decision, I think, than going back to Jarvis Jones and the decision not to pick up his fifth-year option several years ago. Obviously, since the new CBA and fifth-year options become available, the Steelers have picked up the fifth-year option now on all their first-rounders except for Jarvis Jones and Artie Burns, I believe. Now, last year, obviously picked up the fifth-year option on Bud Dupree, and that was debatable whether or not that was going to happen, but when push comes to shove, you can somewhat understand why that happened. I know a lot of people still are not thrilled with that decision, but when it comes to Artie coming off of the season that he had, that it included him being benched around, week 5, week 6, and as we talked the other day, they let him back on that field by, I think it was maybe late in the blowout against Carolina or something. Yeah. Not a good series of reps in that game either, and obviously heads into this season, and Kevin Colbert laid it out. Look, whatever Artie Burns' future at this point depends on Artie, and that's a pretty strong statement right there. And Kevin Colbert laid it out pretty good that Artie kind of fell out of favor early last year, and they had to find a better option than him, and now they'll see if he can rebound, and that it's all a confidence thing with him. I disagree. I think it's more of a technique and confidence thing with him, but it doesn't matter at this point. All that matters is he's not going to have a fifth-year option that he's going to play for, and he's playing for a roster spot this year now.
I think the lack of confidence leads to the poor technique. I think one feeds the other, but regardless, whatever the reason is, it's all within Artie's control, and it's hard to coach because it's a confidence thing, and you can coach it as much as you want, but on game day, it just doesn't seem to translate. So I don't know how you handle him if you're Tom Bradley, or now if you're Terrell Austin coming in, if you're Keith Butler. But it's funny, you talk about replacements. His replacement was Cody Sensabaugh, a man who wasn't re-signed and remains a free agent. So that's the level of talent that replaced Artie Burns, which obviously is not a compliment to him. But yeah, this team's been very critical that they haven't sugarcoated Burns' situation the way that they maybe have Bud Dupree's in the past. And again, I think his odds are less than 50% that he makes the roster.
Boy, when you not to try to make people feel any better or any worse, but when you look at the first rounders from 2016 having their fifth-year options picked up. Obviously, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Joey Bosa, Ezekiel Elliott, Jalen Ramsey. Those are your first, Ronnie Stanley for 6, DeForest Buckner for 7. Doesn't look like Jack Conklin from Tennessee is going to have his fifth-year option picked up. Leonard Floyd had his picked up with the Bears. Eli Apple, who of course now is with the Saints, not having his exercise. Vernon Hargraves with the Buccaneers, another corner, is having his exercise. It looks like Sheldon Rankins with the Saints having his. Laramie Tunsil having his picked up. Carl Joseph, you remember where I was kind of high on Carl Joseph. Coming out of West Virginia, obviously drafted by the Raiders. They chose not to exercise his. Corey Coleman, obviously. Corey Coleman's,
he's a giant, right?
Yeah, he's a giant now. He was originally drafted by the Browns.
Yep.
Probably not going to have his fifth-year option picked up. Decker had his picked up. Neal had his picked up. Ryan Kelly had his picked up with the Colts. Shaq Lawson, no, with the Bills. Darron Lee, of course, with the Jets, not having his picked up. Will Fuller with the Texans having his picked up. Josh Doctson, wide receiver with the Redskins, no. Laquan Treadwell with the Vikings, no. William Jackson, who it'd be funny to know how things would have worked out, in that draft. But he obviously has his picked up by the Bengals. Obviously, the Steelers not picking up Burns. And then after that, it goes Paxton Lynch, Kenny Clark, yes, with the Packers. Joshua Garrett, no, with the 49ers. Robert Nkadichi with the Cardinals, no. Vernon Butler with the Carolina Panthers, no. And Jermaine Ifedi with the Seahawks, no. So what is that, about half and half, I guess, picked up, which probably is about par for the course. And unfortunately, the Steelers got him one that didn't deserve having their fifth-year option picked up.
I think I saw a stat yesterday on Twitter, and I don't remember it verbatim, but I think for the last 9 picks of the first round, it's only like a 33% hit rate of that fifth-year option being picked up. So I think when you look at the back half of the first rounds of a lot of these drafts is when you start seeing misses, which is intuitive. Obviously, you would expect top 5, top 10 guys to have that option picked up, and the odds decrease, numbers decrease as you work down the first round. But Burns, is Burns the worst draft pick of that list? I know we don't know the league as well as we know the Steelers, but is he better than Shaq Lawson or Josh Garnett?
I don't know. You talk about Corey Coleman and
Coleman's a good one.
At least they got some starting, some interception and some production out of them. Look, it's not great that you even have to ask that question. It's probably not great,
Worse than Jarvis? Another question that's sad that you have to ask it. I think we had this debate briefly before. I considered him to be already a worse pick than Jarvis Jones.
Yeah, look, Jarvis missed some time with injury and whatnot too, right?
I just know that Jarvis made the occasional impact play, like the playoff game against Cincinnati, and he forced a fumble, I'm pretty sure. And that, at least he made that play, and Artie never really made that signature play.
Wow, we're digging that's almost like Skip Bayless in a topic today. Does Ben Roethlisberger still want to win or something?
Oh, it's not that bad. Don't lump me in with embrace debate.
But anyway, that's where it stands with Artie Burns, and now we'll see what happens the rest of the offseason. As we said previously, Artie Burns has an $800,000 signing bonus that's due a couple of days into training camp. Look, if you can't get that pushed back, and you don't cut him, then you might as well carry him the rest of the way. It'll be interesting to see. They have to have a pretty good idea, I think, in their mind of whether or not he might make it. But even so, you look at that cornerback room right now. It's not the deepest, and especially when you talk about Mike Tomlin discussing, Cameron Sutton and Mike Hilton. Are those guys even outside corners? We know Mike Hilton really isn't. Is Cameron Sutton at this point much of an outside option than as Artie Burns? And then obviously you didn't bring back Cody Sensabaugh. You have Joe Hayden. You have the rookie Justin Lane that you wouldn't expect to see much playing time during his rookie season, barring some sort of injury there. What do you have? Steven Nelson, obviously, you added.
Well, I think, again, as I mentioned the other day, Artie's going to be at best number 6, because you have Nelson and Hayden, Hilton, Sutton, and then Justin Lane. That's 5 right there. And maybe you could debate that Hilton and Sutton aren't locks. Maybe one of those guys is going to be the starting slot, and the other guy is going to have maybe a case. But I think those guys are certainly ahead of Artie Burns comfortably. So that's 5, and so that means this team's gonna have to carry 6 corners, which is no guarantee. It's very possible, but no guarantee. And then Artie's got to be that 6th guy and got to beat out Brian Allen and Herb Waters and whoever else pops up. So that very much puts Artie outside looking in.
Yeah, if you're a fan, you're probably hoping someone at the one of these one of these futures guys can potentially step up.
Mm-hmm. Or there's one undrafted guy too, Alexander Myers from Houston, who's got an interesting story.
All right, where to now? Now that we're done with that breaking news, that wasn't breaking news that we spent probably 10 minutes too much time on.
Well, we're nothing if not thorough here at Steelers Depot. Let's go to a topic I wanted to mention on the last podcast. We just ran out of time, and I know maybe it's a little outdated right now, but the Steelers trading up to 10. Third time under Kevin Colbert, they've made a move up, so obviously it's pretty rare for them to do so, and it's even rarer to kind of hear about the details and learn about the inner workings of that trade. You're not going to hear it from Colbert's side. They're not going to really divulge any sort of details, but Peter King had some, in his column for Pro Football Talk on Monday, had a really interesting column kind of breakdown of the Steelers trade, and I believe he was there in Denver for the draft that day. It was either Friday or Saturday, so this is some firsthand information. But King basically says that the Steelers outbid a couple teams to move up to 10. They outbid Atlanta and definitely the Giants to give up that second rounder and next year's third to go up to 10. King says that had Denver stood at 10, they would have taken Devin Bush, which I thought was an interesting note, and that Denver wanted a 2020 first-round pick from the Steelers, and they said no. So you get to see that inner working of the deal, which I thought was interesting. And again, overall, I thought it was a really good move for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and Kevin Colbert's told, several people. He's had a few interviews since the draft's taken place, and he's asked about the move up several times, and in so many words, to look, it starts all the way back at the combine and all like that. You start asking around who might be willing to do what and that sort of thing, and you're obviously going to call teams ahead because you want to get an idea how high you might have to go and what you might have to give up. But as we've said all along, it certainly appears like the goal all along was to have Denver be that team and for the Steelers to obviously swap the first-round picks, give up the second because they had the quote-unquote low second in a high third that they got from the Raiders, and then obviously after losing Le'Veon Bell, they probably got a good idea they're going to be getting a third-round compensatory pick, or at least hope they will for next year at this time. So I'm willing to bet that going in, it was like, look, here's the best draft capital. Here's the draft capital that we're willing to spend. Let's just see if we can find a buyer for it. And they obviously, I think, probably felt that they had to either get ahead of the Broncos or trade with the Broncos because of the couple of teams, the Bengals and the Packers picking after him, worried that Bush wouldn't have made it past either one of those teams. And it's the deeper you get into Bush's film and all like that, you can start to say, well, yeah, that probably would have been the case there. So, look, I don't know how many times we're going to say it moving forward here, but whether you like the pick or not or what happened there in the first round with Bush, you have to admire the fact that the Steelers identified their guy and a guy that they couldn't live without, and they did whatever means was necessary to go get him. And if he turns out being 3/4 of the player that they think he's going to be, then it was worth the move, obviously, So, you were not going to get, we talked again on the other show. The drop-off is just, the more you go through some of this tape of the guys, of not only Bush and Devin White, but the guys drafted after him. And, we were even kind of shocked that the kid out of Hawaii ended up being the third off-the-ball linebacker. That's how far a drop that there was. And, we knew ahead of time that Kevin Colbert told us we need to do something about this inside linebacker position. They obviously added Mark Barron, and look, that might be a nice Band-Aid for the meantime. But he's not, can no longer do things, or really never has been the same kind of guy on his college tape. I don't think that Bush is coming out of Michigan there. So once again, you have to take your hat off to Kevin Colbert and hand it to him. And regardless of the way this thing works out, he went and got his guy.
Not that we know exactly how the trade went down, and obviously communication happens throughout the day, and as you mentioned, Colbert saying they talk at the combine, but it is kind of funny to see how informal some of these trades are and how quickly they materialize. Did you see the Colts series on kind of their draft, behind the scenes and going to draft day and all that? Did you happen to watch that day?
No, I didn't.
Check it out. It's awesome. It's one of the coolest behind the scenes and most kind of accessed look at the draft I've ever seen. And they detail the Colts trading back, I think in the first round with Washington to pick up a second, and it was just Bruce Allen calling, and Chris Ballard talks to him for about maybe 90 seconds, and then they throw it up on the board. They discuss the trade for about 2 minutes, and then they say, yeah, let's do it. There's one where there's the assistant GM calling some unknown team and just saying, you guys want to move up? I mean, that's just how conversations start. So these things happen quick. Obviously, when you're on the clock, when it's draft day, that's the most chaotic component to it. It's not who you're drafting. It's not draft grades. That's all been laid out. The only uncertainty is just, are you going to trade up or are you going to trade back? So you got to be quick. You got to be decisive. And I thought that Colts preview, really gave a cool insight. And I'm sure similar happened in Pittsburgh and Denver.
Yeah, and you even look at that footage that the Broncos released of Kevin Colbert trading, how quickly that thing went down. You could tell there's a lot of groundwork probably already laid in there, and then you're just confirming, all right, are we talking 66 and 20 and a third next year? Those are the numbers, correct? And you get the other guy to say correct, and you say, okay, no, you're going to call this in, and we're going to call this in, right? And always what hit me as well, too, you see a lot, and I guess it's in most of these draft rooms, they still use phones with cords on them.
Well, maybe that's a security thing. I'm not sure, but it's also the NFL, and they're old school.
Right. Speaking of which, have you seen that video? I don't know what caught me on this. Did at any point did you grow up in a household that had a rotary phone?
No, I just missed that. But my mom used to work at this tax office that had a rotary phone, and whenever I was sick home from school, like elementary school, I'd check out that and be like, "What is this dinosaur?"
Have you seen that video it went viral? I don't know if Facebook or I think it was on Facebook, maybe YouTube, of these two. I guess they're about 13, 14. I don't know how old the kids are, but they put put one of them rotary phones in the room and tell them this is the number that they want called, and if they can do it in like 15 or 20 minutes or whatnot.
Did they do it?
I think they did, but they went through hell trying to figure out.
Yeah, they're weird. I don't know how you guys did that. It's just what a terrible system.
How we did it. That's how we did it.
How do you dial a 0 on the rotary phones?
There was a 0. Yeah, it just got to go all the way around. But I don't know. You want to instantly feel old, or at least not you, but me or someone my age or a little bit older, maybe listen to podcasts. Go Google that one up. I thought about something we took for granted. That's just how we did it. Back then, and then to see kids just have no idea what this mechanism is.
All right, Dave, you done shaking your fist at the cloud?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Damn it, it sucks getting old.
Well, that was the Peter King story again. There's an article on Steelers Depot you can check out from a couple of days ago.
One other thing about that, man, and look, and we talked a little bit about this. I hate to keep rehashing some of this stuff, about Bush and the plays that he makes that don't show up in the stat sheet. Who was it? Merrill Hodge posted an all-22 view of that play that Bush made. I think it was in the third quarter of the game against Nebraska. I think, and it went down in the books obviously as a 2-yard gain for, how do you pronounce his last name? Devin Ozigbo?
Ozigbo? I think it's Ozigbo.
And look, Devin Ozigbo is no Saquon Barkley or anything like that, but when you see Devin Bush bite down on that play fake inside and then still be able to get the edge on the line that he did. And I have the TV view of that play that Merrill posted in my Twitter feed, because I mean, I don't think all 22 does it. I mean, the end zone does it justice. I think the TV view does that play by Bush more justice than anything. And the way he makes that play there, that play and that play alone should be that one. And there was another one earlier, maybe it was against Penn State. I forget who exactly it was, but that should be the poster gif, if you will, of why the Steelers drafted Devin Bush. And as I said all along, the athleticism and the sideline, the speed was never in question with this kid. The biggest concern I had with him was just from the playmaking standpoint of where it was in the box score. But damn it, that 2-yard stuff that he had, and to make that it was a 1st and 10 situation inside Michigan's own territory. All right. They went for a 2-yard gain. Nebraska ultimately stalled on 3rd down, had to kick a field goal. And probably the most impressive thing about the entire play, maybe, Alex, is that Michigan was ahead 48-0 at the time in the 3rd quarter. I mean, if there's ever a time to maybe mail it in a little bit, it's not that. But that's not in his DNA. So I think if you look at that one play from several different angles and the factors involved with it, that makes you go. And I think someone even tweeted at me yesterday after I posted, is like, okay, I get it now. And if you look at everything involved in that one play, and if you've had any doubts about them moving up to get him, that should push all those concerns aside.
I know you mentioned Igbo isn't Saquon Barkley, but did you see that clip of him chasing Barkley down in 2017?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he did a good job in that game 2017, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's it's not just the lower tier backs; it's top level guys. It's any running back, and that's sideline to sideline. And that's the point I made before, is that he makes a ton of plays that are going to show up as just tackles. Maybe not even show up at all on a stat sheet, but they are critical plays that few guys can make.
Absolutely. Very, very, very talented kid, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard to keep him off the field.
Yeah. I think he's going to have a role right away. I don't know if he's going to start right away, but I think he'll have some sort of sub-package role, and then by maybe quarter season, mid-season, he may definitely work his way into the starting lineup. Okay, Dave, let's go on to the AFC North now. I know we wanted to touch on that during the Wednesday show as well. We didn't get a chance to. We're just going to run through it briefly, but it is probably worth a look to see what the rest of the AFC North did. And we'll just start with Baltimore. And obviously they took Hollywood Brown in the 1st round, Antonio Brown's cousin. Just trying to get some speed, athleticism at wide receiver. They doubled down by taking Miles Boykin in the 3rd, Justice Hill in the 4th. I thought this was a really good draft overall for Baltimore.
Hollywood Brown, I mean, we'll see. The size with him is the most concerning thing. Smaller than a guy like Tavon Austin and smaller than a guy like Tyreek Hill. I mean, the guy was a big play machine. There's no doubt about it. You get the football in his hands out in open space, look out. The problem is and look, thank God the Steelers got a little bit of speed maybe in Devin Bush or whatnot, because this little guy is going to be hard to keep up with. The thing is, can Lamar Jackson getting the football out in space, and that's going to be the biggest thing with them. Obviously, the Ravens are We're starved again for wide receivers here. Kind of feels like a boom or bust pick with Marquise Brown, doesn't it? If he's just if he just becomes Tavon Austin, ooh, yikes! But he's just so damn small. You just wonder how he can hold up to the speed and the physicality of the NFL game.
Sure, but I think when you add him and with a run-heavy offense, if a defense wants to commit 8 to the box to try to stop the obvious run threat, then you're going to have one-on-one with Hollywood Brown. And, if Brown gets a step on somebody, then Lamar just has to make a half-decent throw, and it's going, for a long gain. And then Miles Boykin in the 3rd, a guy that's going to have a big catch radius to maybe help mask some of Lamar's inaccuracies. So that's big. I think it's Justice Hill, Jalen Ferguson, another 3rd-round pick I didn't love, but, they love those big big edge rusher, so he kind of fits the mold. And they take Trace McSorley in the 6th round, to be a backup and gadget guy. So I like the draft, though. I thought they got talent and speed and athleticism.
Ben Powers is that nasty one out of Oklahoma, isn't he?
They're all the nasty dudes.
Well, he is nasty though. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he is. Yeah. He kind of fits that Ravens kind of, when you think of some of their offensive linemen, not overly athletic, but boy, he sure is a physical, nasty guard, if you will. Iman Marshall, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I wasn't overly as high on him, I don't think, as you are. Daylon Mack, I mean, going to be interesting to see if he can make their roster. And, of course, Trace McSorley, going to be interesting to see how he competes. Jalen Ferguson, he was the kid out of Louisiana Tech. Wasn't he one that got disinvited to the combine and all, and not great pro day numbers and all. Kind of has a, I don't know, Ladarius Smith light feel to him. I don't know.
Yeah, Zadarius Smith. Yeah, the Courtney Upshaw, that's kind of the guy that they like. Daylon Mack, just your classic big dude in the middle with Brandon Williams and Michael Pierce. That's just, again, a Ravens type of dude. With Cincinnati taking Jonah Williams in the 1st round, pick number 11. Probably one of the smartest players in this draft, one of the most prepared guys. I don't know if they're going to play him a tackle or guard. I didn't really hear the post-draft analysis from the Bengals camp, but I think just a really solid pick. A dude who's going to play in this league for a long time. Other picks, Drew Sample in the 2nd round really surprised me. That's one of the worst picks anyone made in this draft, taking a real kind of blocking type as high as the 2nd. I thought Sample could go high, maybe the 4th round, but the 2nd round pick is just kind of insane. They take Renell Wren, defensive lineman from Arizona State, who I really like. It's one of my favorite picks in this draft. And then Rodney Anderson in the 6th round, a running back that a lot of people liked on the field, but he's got so many medical issues that really dropped him into late day 3.
Look, Jonah Williams, I mean, you talk about going best player available at the time, you get that. I mean, that guy should be a technician at either tackle or guard for them. And Lord knows they need some offensive line help there in Cincinnati. So nothing wrong with that pick. Drew Sample, yeah, that one shocked me. They needed a linebacker. Without goes Vontaze Burfict and all, and we'll see if Pratt can be that guy. Obviously, some impressive hitting and all at North Carolina State, but not the speed and sideline to sideline ability that, say, a Devin Bush. Ryan Finley kind of has a feel to a Joshua Dobbs pick to it a few years ago. Wren we both liked, I think, but the thing is, can he rush the passer consistently?
Yeah.
And then the other two, really, I don't know a lot about Michael Jordan or I know a little bit about Deshaun Davis, the other inside linebacker, kind of a I don't know, Vince Williams-esque linebacker, maybe at Auburn's kind of the way I got the feel of Deshaun Davis there, and Rodney Anderson at the end, Jordan Brown. I don't know much about it all.
Yeah, Anderson was really talented his 2017 season, but he's had neck injuries, he's had broken multiple legs, torn ACLs. I mean, his dude's got every injury in the book, and that really dropped him. I didn't love his tape either in 2017, but some people thought, from an on-field standpoint, he was worth the day 2 pick. For Cleveland, obviously not picking in the 1st round, but they take Greedy Williams with their first selection. Greedy slipped. I thought that was a really good value pick, and you have him and Denzel Ward's going to be an excellent duo, I think, in the AFC North. They took Taki in the third round, the linebacker, which I thought was a little high, but they made up for it with, I think, one of my favorite picks in this draft, Sheldrick Redwine in the 4th round out of Miami, and then take a couple late-round guys, Drew Forbes from Southeast Missouri State, one of the nastiest dudes you'll see in this draft.
Obviously, we both know a lot about Greedy Williams. Tell me about the kid at the Taki.
Yeah, I didn't watch him. I don't know much about him besides the name. I thought 3rd round, though, was a tick higher than what I expected.
Redwine obviously gives him something to work with at safety. You know how I feel about Mac Wilson.
5th round, though. That's good value. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the 5th round pick in Mac Wilson. You would have even taken Mac Wilson in the 5th.
Yeah, possibly. If I already had another linebacker on board at the time, possibly. Siebert, the kicker, boy, 5th round. I mean, look, I guess you have to do something there, maybe, and get him early if you want to get a kicker at that point. Forbes and Donnie Lewis, those two got names at the end. I don't know much of any about.
Yeah, I'm sure they took a kicker in the fifth because Matt Gay, the kicker, went in the fifth round before that pick. So Cleveland probably felt like this is our top kicker left. If we don't get him, we may not get him circling back. And then, I don't know much about Donnie Lewis Jr. I think he's an undersized corner. And then Forbes is just kind of a nasty dude to play tackle. They're going to start him at tackle, but he's probably going to end up kicking the guard. So of those three teams, Baltimore, Cincinnati, or Cleveland, any draft that you like the most? Or did you like any of those picks more than maybe what you like Pittsburgh did, if you can try to compare or contrast?
I'm obviously not going to get into grading any of these, but
sure, but just overall.
But I got to feel that I like. Baltimore always seems to draft and ends up drafting a couple of guys that I got my eye on, and obviously I didn't have my eye on Marquise Brown. I know who Marquise Brown. I think it's a very boom or bust pick, but they really need something at receiver there. But Miles Boykin and Justin Hill and Ben Powers are three guys that I really liked prior to the draft, and all three of them are now Ravens there. So I would have to say that I like the Ravens draft best of the other teams in the AFC North.
Yep, I agree. I think they did. Now, maybe I didn't love the top two picks, and those are obviously the most critical ones, but you get, Miles Boykin, Justice Hill, Daylon Mack. I think Marshall's going to be a good player. He's probably going to convert to safety, and we'll see. I think if any team can do something with Trace McSorley, it's going to be Baltimore. So, yeah, I thought Baltimore had a really good draft, and, some of those guys, trying to contain Hollywood Brown, Miles Boykin, the Eagles are going to have their hands full in 2019.
Make no mistake, though, I don't feel like they did an overly good job of addressing that defense that lost. I know they filled in a couple of holes via free agency and all, but I don't think that's going to be anything close to the defense that they had last year, which, by the way, ended up being a pretty damn good defense and probably better than what I thought it would be. Or it was better than I thought it would be going into the season there. So, they addressed needs on offense, but are they going to give it away on defense?
Yeah, that's fair. They got to try to create more turnovers. That was an excellent defense last year that could not create a turnover to save their life. So if they
imagine if they did.
Right. It'd be an elite. It would be just almost borderline historically good defense in this era of all time. So maybe they can try to supplement maybe a lack of talent by just getting some more splash plays. And Pittsburgh's obviously having a similar conversation. To circle back to Pittsburgh now, Dave, where do you want to go? We can talk about Sutton Smith, talk about some of the undrafted guys. Which rabbit hole do you want to go down first?
Let's talk about a little bit more about the draft picks and then into some of the undrafted free agents, which you've already broken down. I went a little bit, continuing to take deeper dive. The thing about this whole process, Alex, is we try to watch as much tape as we can on as many prospects as we can throughout the process here. And a lot of times that only involves watching maybe a 3-game cut-up reel of these cut-ups that are you easily find on YouTube. And, depending on the 3-game cut-up that you find and whether or not it has 2017 stuff in it or not, you gotta take deeper dives than just that. I keep going back to the Chris Jones from a few years ago. The 3 games that I watched just wasn't a good representation, I don't think, of what he was or could become in there. And the further I get into some of the tape on some of these kids that the Steelers drafted, I think, man, I didn't see a lot of this in the 2 or 3 games that I initially watched on here. So it just goes to show you that throughout the process, we think we know a lot about some of these prospects, but until you really start taking a deeper dive into some of these kids, you don't really get a firmer handle on who they, their weakness, their more of their strengths and more of their weaknesses. And I think with the thing that's sticking out the most with me about Deontay as I take a deeper dive, man, he can cut on a dime and give you 9 cents change, man. He really has good feet out in open space, and that's just talking about him with the football in his hands. I got a couple of clips on the Twitter machine yesterday of him, one on a wide receiver screen and the other on the first touchdown that he scored against VMI, which, by the way, if anybody has the Toledo versus VMI game,
we all watched that one live. That was big ratings, wasn't it?
Yeah, if anybody has that, I would like to still see it, though. I've only got a few highlights from that game there, and I think he only caught like 2 passes in that game. Obviously, it was a blowout, but anyway, the amazing, he has those ankle breaking kind of cuts there that he can make.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the more impressive one was the one that I showed on the wide receiver screen of his, on him being able to read was that against Central Michigan? Maybe, I think it was. The wide receiver screen out to the left there, and he does a really good job of setting up the blocks on that edge, and it looks like that play might go for a yard or two, and it ends up being him squeezing through, reading the blocks, and getting like 12 or 13 yards on that. So I think that stuck out to me. His ability, look, I already knew that he has a good reputation of being able to get off the line and get separation against any kind of coverage. Obviously, that includes man press coverage as well too. But I think an underrated aspect of him is his ability to work back toward the football. And that means a lot in today's NFL, because the speed of today's game, if you're not working back to the football, that could be a pick or a PBU for a defensive back. So I think he's got a good natural part of his game. And, you keep hearing, who was it, Kevin Colbert say, the word that kept coming out of Phil Kreidler's mouth. I think it was Kreidler talking about Deontay Johnson, is how many times the word natural came out when describing his scouting report there. And I think, I don't know for sure, but I'm willing to bet one of the things that Kreidler's talking about there is he has a natural ability to work back to the football, and I think that's great there. He's got probably another natural ability to vary his speeds on his releases, which is another important thing when it comes to a wide receiver. And I think the other thing is, and I'm probably one of the few that notices this kind of stuff here, but and hopefully it's just a surface or a footwear issue. He sure seems to slip a lot coming out of breaks. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but he sure seems to lose his footing quite a bit throughout his tape on coming out of breaks.
Yeah, it may just be a product of him going too fast or bad field conditions, and obviously Heinz Field isn't the best field conditions, but I think it's just a product of him, being almost faster than what his cleats can handle. But you're right. I mean, yeah, that's basically become Colbert's favorite draft story to tell is a story about Phil Kreidler, the college scouting coordinator, reading Johnson's report and just saying the word natural 5 times. And I think it's in a lot of phases. It's his route running, it's his big playability, it's some of those details as you mentioned, like working back to the football, natural hands, and just a guy that just goes out there and makes big plays. And they really liked his run after catch ability and the things that AB did: take the quick screen, take the slant. Run this advanced route. I mean, I don't think any of that's going to be foreign or things that he can't do. So that's where the natural aspect of his game comes to. Now it's just about building consistency. I think certainly with his hand, he's got to be able to catch the ball more consistently. There's too many drops on his tape, and probably needs to get stronger too, so he can be more effective after the catch, because he does go down pretty easily once you get your hands on him.
Yeah, and the drops, I've seen a couple of them, and I'm not. A few of them look like concentration lapses, or him not expecting the ball getting up on him maybe quicker than what he thought. I'm not so worried about that. He has good body control. You see that play against Fresno State, I think. It ended up being ruled incomplete and him out of bounds and all, but back shoulder catch in the end zone, which he makes the catch. He just failed to get a foot down. Tony toe tap, he is not. Just yet, but there is the ability there. I think he has a nice catch radius for a guy his size there. I haven't really checked so much the bad ball ability too terribly much. How many bad balls does he catch? Bad targets does he catch? Need to go back to kind of re-examine that again. Obviously, as a blocker, there's some effort there. He's just not good at it, and probably won't ever be outstanding at it. But now we'll see. I mean, look, he has the ability, and there's enough there on tape to say, okay, we get why he was drafted in the 3rd round. Okay, probably right exactly where he needs to be. Now, first round grade, would he have been drafted in the 2nd round? Well, the fact of the matter is he wasn't drafted in the 2nd round. He's drafted where he was drafted, and that's by the Steelers, in early in the 3rd round there. So I think that's where he goes, where he should go. The deeper I get into his tape, and now we'll just see. Here's the other thing. He worked on both sides. You go back and you think back about the deep dive that we did initially on James Washington this same time last year. James Washington was a one-sided player primarily. James Washington ran a full route tree, but obviously didn't have to play against press as much as a guy like Johnson did. Pretty much, I mean, no signs of him being a potential X guy, I guess you would say, with Washington. Primarily a Z guy who played faster on tape and gained separation of what his 40 time might say. Now Johnson, you see a lot of different other things other than that, So and you definitely see the ability to become not only an X receiver, but a guy you can move around and play any spot.
As Colbert that mentioned it the other day, that they like his 4-phase versatility, what he does on the outside, what he does on the inside, and then the kick and punt return game. And is this guy going to be a starting return guy in at least one area to open up this year? I think kick return is going to be. I think he's going to start on kick returns.
I tell you, there was a couple of bobbles in some kick returns. I don't know if you come across a couple of those. So
no, I haven't. But this kick return team needs life. They've been terrible the last 2 seasons. They've been 31st, I think 32nd.
Yeah, he needs one thing I think that I noticed when going through, and I obviously haven't taken a deep dive into his kickoff returns or punt returns, but I have come across a few of them, and there's some that have been bobbled and put on the grass there before you pick them up and go with them. So you obviously can't have that at all.
Sure.
But if he can work that out, yeah, why not? I mean, you're gonna have to try something there. Not that many kickoffs get returned anyway, right?
Sure, but when they do, you want some big play. And this was, I think they averaged 19.8 yards per kick last year. I mean, it was a terrible. It was worse than the year before, and they brought in a dedicated guy in Switzer to do it. Now that's a multifold thing. It's not just Switzer, but it's terrible. If
he dresses right out of shoot and everything's healthy the way we think it might go, if you're going to dress him, you want to be able to do something.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he could do punt returns too, and maybe that skill set's a little better for punt returns. For the kick returns, does he have the long speed, and is he a tough enough guy to do it? We'll see. But I think he'll definitely be in the mix, and he's gonna get a look at both kick and punts.
I know everybody will say, "Oh, Dave, you just trying to sell the pick and all like that." No, that's just what I have found on a deeper dive. It's hard to translate. Some of these wide receivers you see will have some of these skill sets, and it just doesn't translate. So, he should have a better rookie season than what old James Washington had last year. One would hope.
Low bar to set there. What's the number one thing that worries you about the Deontay Johnson pick? Is there anything that kind of sticks in the back of your mind that maybe if it doesn't work out, it won't work out because, reason?
Well, that's a great question.
I would just say that the overall athletic profile. Obviously, this guy didn't test well, and certainly the way guys play and the way they test can be two different things. We've seen that before. Juju has 290 career touchdowns, and he ran 4.54. But when you look at his athletic profile, it's not impressive. It's average to maybe even below average. And if you wonder, is he going to play faster than that on tape?
I don't think. Here's the thing. How many times do we just see him running a go? And getting on top of a player that way, or running a stutter and go or something like that. We just don't. The thing about AB, especially later on in the last 3 or 4 years, is, by God, if you single him up, man, on the line, and Ben saw it, and Ben knew that there was no, the safety was going to cheat the other side, or was just mainly playing in the middle of the field. Ben and AB can make a team pay. Yep.
That's why I had to bracket them.
And without a doubt, do I think Johnson can do that right now? No, obviously no. But you watch that Miami game, and you see a couple of passes like back to back, even, or not too far apart, same route and everything, against Michael Jackson, who, let's face it, Michael Jackson, not going to be probably a premier Pro Bowl cornerback in the NFL, but probably one of the better ones that Johnson faced during his college career, I would guess. And he schooled him a couple times down the right sideline on some deep throws similar to that. So I guess that would be my number one concern there. Is this a guy that if you get lined up one-on-one with a cornerback with no help against press, can he, how quickly can he make those kind of cornerbacks in the NFL pay for that?
Yeah, he's going to have to play the extra receiver spot. You got to be the guy. You're facing rolled up press coverage. You're facing, man to man, and you got to win those battles. So
because a guy like Martavis Bryant just run away from you. If he could get a clean release and all. James Washington, we haven't been able to see that ability yet with him, even though he did it in college. I mean, and it gets off too. He would just run past some people, and obviously not blazing speed. AB had a good enough. Or a fantastic get off and fantastic footwork that he'd spin those corners around, and somehow he'd manage to stack them and get on top of them. And that late little reach out and gain separation at the end of some of those deep passes, which we see Johnson do a little bit of that as well too. He's got some AB traits to him. Now, we don't dare compare him, put him in the same sentence to him until he shows us he can do it on the field. But there is enough there that you think, okay, maybe. But I think it's a little bit stretched to expect him to become AB, obviously, at this point.
He's got to get stronger, though. I mean, AB, pound for pound, was one of the strongest players on this team. And his hand use and that strength that he had to run through press and to break tackles was, I thought, really what took his game to a whole new level. I made him such a threat. And Johnson is not that strong guy right now.
AB would step on people's toes. He'd really press the route into the cornerback, and that's what we mean by stepping on their toes. He'd get right up on top of them, and before getting how many times do we see AB really lean into corners, with that physicality of his, lean into them and then break out to gain separation. It's little things like that if you're able to do that in the NFL, that a lot of good receivers coming out of college can't or don't.
Absolutely. So, we'll keep watching Johnson, and then certainly in camp, we'll see where he works and expect him to wear a lot of hats. And this team will find a place for him in some capacity. To go to Sutton Smith, Dave, I know you watched him some more. Any updated thoughts on what you've seen on Sutton Smith?
This guy's going to be, by the time training camp rolls around, he's going to be a cult hero, Alex. There are Easter eggs all over his college tape, and even last year on one of those big runs against Iowa early in the season there, which I must have missed somewhere through rundowns with him initially there. He can hawk guys down. Now, obviously, you don't want to have to see a lot of that as a member of the Steelers, but. Man, this kid is just a fun kid to watch. I mean, he makes plays, and if you go on YouTube too, about some of they've got some lifting videos and up of him from his time at Northern Illinois too. He's evidently can put the bar up some on top of it there. So that obviously will help him with the whole lack of strength thing. I mean, you look at that, you look at the measurables on him though, 6'0", or 6 or whatever it is, 233, and the short arms and all like that, and you think there's absolutely no way this guy's going to be able to hold up in the NFL. But then you go and you look at his entire sack reel, and he has some of those effort sacks, which they all do, right? The 6, 7, 8 second play breaks down kind of sacks. They all have them in their film, and he has his share of his as well too. The thing with him though too is he has a lot of them just running around, just beating the tackles around the edge and flattening out and bending and getting to the quarterback that way. And boy, if you want to talk about a go-to signature move of his, I don't think he broke any tackles' arms or hands doing it, but he likes that two-handed swipe on both sides, the left or right side, that two-hand swipe, and then just kind of dip them and beat them around the corner there. If you go back and look at his 2017 tape, you'll actually see him win a couple times to the inside, mostly on speed, not obviously on strength or anything like that. But there is at least some evidence of him getting some sacks by winning inside that to the inside of a tackle there. He looks like a safety out there playing outside linebacker, and I still have my doubts about him overall. But the deeper you get into his tape, I mean, he makes plays. I mean, and you can't fault a guy for just making plays. And it is now going to be interesting to see, with that less than ideal measurements and everything that goes along with him, if the way he won in college, he'll be able to win in the NFL. And how is he going to be able to play against a run and stuff like that? Now, we talked about the Van Ginkel kid prior to, and look, what an exciting kid, and 6th, 7th round. Why wouldn't you take a chance on a kid like that who on tape did get tossed around some,
Yeah.
You don't see Sutton Smith getting tossed around as much as Van Ginkel, at least in my run-throughs.
Right. I think Smith, well, I don't know if he played more football. I believe he was a 2-year guy, and so was Van Ginkel after transferring from a small school. But probably, better build, more compact build, and that probably helped him. His ticket, though, is going to have to play clean. As you mentioned, the swipes, staying disengaged. He can't get locked up by these tackles. He's going to lose from a length, size, and strength perspective. So he's going to have to stay clean as a pass rusher. That's going to be his way to play defense whenever he sees the field. Hopefully that's not going to be for a long time. But yeah, I mean, he's a hustle guy. He's an effort guy. He's gonna translate really well at special teams.
One would think, and obviously I think he's going to have to. That's going to be a lot of his ability to make the 53-man roster, right?
Oh yeah. I mean that's his ticket. Forget about defense year one. He's a special teamer. That's how he's got to prove it.
Right. But I'm telling you this, he has some plays on his tape, man, and I went back and I looked at all of his 2018 sacks and quite a few of his 2016 ones and his tackles for loss and all like that. That's why I say come time that the training camp rolls around, there's going to be enough footage and all floating around on this kid making plays that he's going to be the fan favorite for sure.
Yeah, him and Benny Snell, I think, are two guys that the fans are going to love. So anything else to add with Sutton Smith?
No, that's it. I want to go into more about looking into how he actually does play against a run next. But, I mean, from what I've seen from the pass, that's basically what I've seen from an effort and from a pass rushing standpoint so far with him.
I know we're running a little bit long, so let's talk about the UDFAs maybe for next show, because I've only watched Locke and Garrett Brumfield and a little bit of the other guys, so maybe we could learn more about those guys over the weekend and talk about them for Tuesday's show. But let's talk about your 53-man roster prediction, Dave. I know you put up your first way too early crack at it, and I'll do the same probably for Monday. Kind of giving our first guesstimate of how this roster is going to shake out. Any initial thoughts? Do you want to go through this position by position? A lot of it, I think, is fairly chalk, with only a couple areas of real debate to be had right now.
Yeah, it is a lot of chalk, but really, why wouldn't you go that route?
Yeah. Sure.
With a lot of this, I did try. I tell you, you do this exercise though, and it does make you see how much this and what I did in order to put that post together first anyway was to look back at last year's post-draft 53-man roster prediction there, and oh boy, has it's comical to look back at some of those names that you thought, oh wow, that guy's gonna be a slam dunk, or that guy's not, and guys who made it or whatnot. But obviously, we'll start with the quarterback position, and I think it's cut and dry right there, right?
Yeah, there's no debate to be had. Broken rollbacks can be the number 4, not going to make this roster. And I think it's pretty cut and dry with running backs too, right?
Yeah, on the surface, you think it's going to be those 3, and then that's it.
Yeah, and then of course Rosie Nix at fullback. I think the first interesting position you get is at receiver, and the question of how many are they going to keep, 5 or 6, and then if you do have 5 or 6, or however you want to shake it out, you have to figure out kind of who's going to get that final spot. And we kind of know who your 4 locks are: Juju, Moncrief, Washington, and Deontay Johnson. From there, then it becomes open-ended with Switzer and Eli and whoever else you like to throw in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at Juju, Moncrief, and Washington, you think all those guys are going to be locks. You think Deontay Johnson's obviously going to be a lock as well, too. So there's 4. Are they going to keep 5 or are they going to keep 6 total? I made it work where I was able to keep 6. I'm not thoroughly convinced, though I would not bet my house that even if all these guys stay healthy, that these are going to be the 6, to be quite honest with you. I think you could see a choice between Switzer and Rodgers there, and then who knows maybe what you get, come out of maybe one of the younger guys. So, Eli Rodgers and Ryan Switzer, if either or both make it, one's it's probably going to be some special teams in there. And we know Switzer can return punts, and we know he can return some kicks. We also saw Switzer be able to provide you a little bit of downfield passing later last season, right? Instead of just normally being an air yards guy of 4 yards or shorter. We saw him a little bit deeper down the field. And I think for a string of I don't know how many catches it was, 11 or whatever it was there. He had some air yard targets deeper than I think 7 yards down the field. So that was a positive there. Eli Rodgers, we talk about this guy for several years now. He's a good route runner. Keep waiting for him to run with it, and obviously the knee injury kept him on PUP last year. So I think Eli Rodgers, he should be expected to come out and have a fantastic off-season program and camp right out of the chute and carry that on into preseason. If he doesn't, if we're not going, oh, wow, man, what did you think about Eli Rodgers, then I think he's in jeopardy here.
Yeah, totally fair. Obviously, one of Switzer and Rodgers will make it. And both could make it, and that's what you have here. And there's really no debate to be had about that. That's perfectly fine. But I think the really interesting question is if you have to take one of those guys off at some point, who do you take off, Switzer and Eli? And you could go either direction. I'd probably lean Eli like you right now, but you could make a case the other way around.
Which way would you lean?
I think I'm going to probably keep them both right now because I think it's too hard to call right now. But if I had to keep only one of Switzer or Eli right now, I would keep Switzer.
I think I would too because of the what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, kick and punt, and I think he showed some toughness downfield. And I think that, as you said, that was something that we wanted to see from him, that he can play receiver. And Eli's calling card of a Switzer was that he can be more of a vertical threat, but Switzer showed that he can be that as well the second half of 2018.
Do you see him keeping 5 or 6?
Again, hard to say. I think 6 is certainly possible. I'm gonna say 6 right now, but we'll go to camp and see what happens.
All right, tight end. Not hard to guess that. The only way I think this changes is if you can get somebody off the waiver wire, and potentially if you feel that Zach Gentry might be more practice squad material his rookie season there. Obviously, there's nobody outside of McDonald, Grimble, and Gentry to really choose from right now. I mean, the team obviously cut Bucky Hodges right before the draft as well, too. Do you think Christian Scotland Williamson can be that guy? I mean, really, no. At this point. So you really have to go with these 3 right now until we're given something else to work with. And as we talked a few times since the draft, if there was a winner coming out of the draft, it's probably Grimble on the offensive side of football. So McDonald, Grimble, and Gentry, and boy, that doesn't give you a lot of comfort there, especially with McDonald's injury history.
It does not. How about a name just released yesterday by Oakland, Lee Smith, big blocking type. Yeah, he's a blocker's blocker, 31 years old, but you want that pure inline wide tight end, Lee Smith. I think the Steelers should take a look, and it's not going to count against the comp formula. Not that he would cost much anyway, but as he was released, it's not going to hurt you, and the comp formula ends May 7th anyway.
I would bring him in as a body if I could get him on a minimum salary benefit contract 1 year, and let's just see what happens here. I'm obviously wouldn't do jumping jacks or anything if they announced the signing because he is older. Not much special teams value on top of it. I mean, he is just pretty much a blocking tight end there.
Yeah, but you need that. I mean, you got to have a number 4 tight end in camp. I mean, with Vance, his injury history, and Grimble and Gentry being an unknown guy, you gotta at least have because who's your number 4 right now? Kevin Rader?
Right. I have, like I said, throw the names at me. If they can block, sign them up.
Yeah, it's just weird how they're handling tight end right now. I mean, they have to hope that Wimble really turns that corner, which he could, but haven't seen it yet.
Maybe there's a guy that you can trade for late, right before the regular season starts or whatnot. I don't know, but
watch out for Jason Kroom up in Buffalo if he doesn't make the roster. They brought him in for a visit a couple years ago. He played well last year.
Who? How many tight ends are there in Cincinnati right now? I know didn't they re-up. I mean, Uzama's going to be there, right? Because they re-upped him for
$6 million
for a pretty
and
nice
they brought,
deal.
Was it Eifert? Didn't they bring Eifert back?
Yeah.
Yeah, brought Eifert back. I have to look at the depth chart. Yeah, watch out for the Jets. Jets always have tight ends that are interesting. They got a ton of those guys up there. I'd watch out for the Jets.
Right. So I think you watch that. You definitely pay attention during the preseason here. It would not surprise either one of us if they sign a veteran for the minimum here in the next several weeks or so.
Yep, agreed.
All right, offensive line. A lot of chalk here, and it makes it easy. And the question is, are they going to keep 8? Are they going to keep 9? And if they keep 9, who's going to be number 8 and 9? There are going to be some interesting battles, I think, going on here. Obviously, Pouncey, DeCastro, Ramon Foster, Villanueva, Finney, and Matt Filer and Okorafor are pretty much locks, and that would be 7, barring any injury. Would you agree?
Agreed. 100%.
I guess the question is are you going to keep 8 or are you going to keep 9? Can Gerald Hawkins make it back from that? What was it? A torn quad?
Yeah, I believe so. In last spring.
Thank goodness it wasn't Achilles with him.
Yeah, look at Jake McGee. I wish Jake McGee was healthy in camp right now. That'd be nice.
Right, and that old Achilles injury sure scares you.
Yeah, it's probably worse than ACLs right now.
Probably. But Hawkins, he has a little bit of playing experience. They obviously drafted him and spent what did they spend on him? A 4th round pick out of LSU a few years ago, and he played minimal snaps. Obviously lost his rookie season, and then I think a shoulder injury. It
was a shoulder.
Cost him second. Then last year, so look, this guy, I'd still like to see him try to get kicked inside some. I don't know.
I saw you keep banging that drum.
I don't know if we're going to see that, obviously, but. Before I completely threw him out the door, I would line him up there. Zach Banner, this is a guy that, a hanger-on, I guess, at this point. They obviously drafted Derwin Gray. If he gives you anything as a left tackle in the early stages, you might want to keep him. But I expect him to get kicked inside the guard sooner rather than later. It's hard to make all these draft picks make the 53, So I have him as the odd man out. And let's not forget about a guy like R.J. Prince, who stuck all last year as a practice squad guy. Could he be kind of a dark horse here for an 8th or 9th spot?
Sure. I mean, I think you went a little heavy on the tackles with Hawkins and Banner, especially if Filer were to win that right tackle job. Then your backups are Finney, Okorafor, Hawkins, and Banner. 3 of those 4 are tackles. So Prince could be a guy. He's played some tackle, but he's really best at guard. How about Patrick Morris, another guy, UDFA that made the team, stuck around all year, interior guy, center guard. That probably didn't impress me as much as I thought last year, but could make a jump from year 1 to year 2. So
very possible too. And look, You got who's who. You assume they're going to sign Finney, right, to an extension, but what if they don't?
Well, he's making the team either way. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's not going to affect anything.
I'm guessing is you got to start thinking maybe about your next Doug Legursky.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll get Finney done. But either way, he's making the team. It's not going to change too much on the roster for this year. But yeah, I might swap out Banner for an interior guy.
All right, someone like Prince maybe or
Patrick Morris.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the two.
I could definitely see that. Defense, and I initially had this as a 23-20 or 24-26 split offense defense. I finally worked out made the numbers 25-25. The 6 defensive linemen, I don't know how you can argue against these guys to start off with. Hayward, Tuitt, Hargrave, Alualu, Daniel McCullers, and Isaiah Buggs.
Yep.
Not
much of a debate.
Can a guy like Casey Sales end up kicking down the door? Maybe. How safe is McCullers? He looks pretty damn safe right now. I'll tell you that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to beat him out. Somebody's going to have to surprise. I don't think it's going to be Casey Sales, and I'll have to look at the rest of the roster. But I mean, Winston Craig, the AAF kid. I think that's pretty chalk. I think that's how it's going to go.
All right, the linebackers as a whole really makes for an interesting conversation here. I played with having 10 total in there, 5 inside and 5 outside. You stare at that number, 10 total outside, or 10 total linebackers, and you think, man, do I really see the Steelers going that route? And I had it in there and then I took it out. So here are the 9 that I kept: 5 inside, 4 outside. Vince Williams, Mark Barron, Devin Bush, Tyler Matakevich, Ulysses Gilbert III, Bud Dupree, TJ Watt, Anthony Chickalo, and Ola Adeniyi. It's hard to argue about the 4 outside guys that I have in Dupree, Watt, Chickalo, and Adeniyi. The question is can Sutton Smith crack that and be the 5th? Will he give you enough on special teams to warrant getting the 5th? Because to me, that's the only way, unless he just blows it up as an edge rusher and all, that's the only way I think he's going to make it. Now, as far as my 5 inside guys, Williams, Barron, and Bush are obviously locks. Matakevich, you had an article on him on Steelers Depot the other day. Go ahead and try to cut him.
Yeah.
The guy just gives you so much special teams, and I know he's a guy that you're going to be afraid to put out there on defensive side of the football field. But is what he gives you as a special teamer enough to carry him as number 53? And right now, you'd have to guess yes. Ulysses Gilbert, I think, as I dive more down into his tape, the thing that sticks out to me the most with him is, they sure did line him out up in space a lot,
Mm-hmm.
a lot in space, and that's going to be a plus for him. And we'll just have to see what he can do. He likes to run around and hit, I think, as Jerry Olsovsky says. So if that's true, and he shows up on special teams and gives you something there, he's also going to be tough to cut there. So those are my 9 to open up with. But I guess you can make an argument for there being 10.
Is there any particular reason you want Gilbert over Sutton Smith? I mean, I know there's not a whole lot to go off right now, but you just spent up, being the called hero, and then you just got your own called hero.
Yeah, his ability to play out in space more off the ball, and I think he's going to be I think he has the makings of be as good of maybe special teamer as Sutton Smith, so that's why.
Gilbert, you mean, as good special teamer?
Gilbert being as good as special teamer as Sutton Smith.
Okay. Yeah.
Look.
I
guess you can make an argument that Smith and Gilbert make it, and Matakevich doesn't. But boy, one of those guys are going to have to be, that's Matakevich like on special teams.
Yeah, I mean, your backup linebacking group is Devin Bush, Gilbert, Smith, Adeniyi. I mean, you got some young depth there. I think you want to keep around a veteran that's played special teams at the highest level.
Absolutely.
All right, but yeah, I mean, you can go Gilbert, you can go Smith. You could keep them both. I don't think there's a wrong answer there. But cornerback, that gets interesting. There's a name on there that I didn't expect to see, and one Mr. Artie Burns.
Yeah, you talk about a guy like Artie Burns, and like we said at the beginning of the show here, what do you do with him?
Most fans will say cut him.
Yeah, most are going to say cut him, and I get that, but what do you have depth wise?
If you're counting on Artie for depth, I mean, I don't know if that's going to sway.
I mean, I think he's going to be a tough out. Is what I'm saying. I'm not above him getting cut. But when Joe Hayden, Steven Nelson, Mike Hilton, Artie Burns, Justin Lane, and Cameron Sutton, those are my 6. To start with. Obviously, Mike Hilton's in the slot. Cameron Sutton, we got to find out who he is. We don't really know who he is at this point, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you view Burns as a tough out, though? I view that as almost the opposite.
Because he has some decent film in his past.
Way in his past, his rookie year.
Right. I mean, if he can get back that confidence or whatnot,
sure.
If he has a good offseason, a good camp, and someone says, well, Artie Burns always has a good camp. That might be true.
That was going to be me. He always has a good camp.
All right, that might be true, but he doesn't cost you a lot, and he's got some experience there. So, unless you can find, who are you going to cut him in lieu of, I guess?
Well, you could just keep 5. You also still have Brian Allen or somebody new making the team. I mean, is Burns going to be the top backup on the outside? Do you view him as being Steven Nelson's backup?
Maybe open up the season initially until I can get Justin Lane up and running.
Yeah, that makes me real nervous. I mean, I'd put Cam Sutton on the outside before I put Artie Burns on the outside.
Are they going to re-sign Cody Sensabaugh at some point? I mean, look, if you, how would you feel about them cutting Artie Burns right now and re-signing Cody Sensabaugh for the minimum?
I don't know if you have to cut Artie Burns in the process, but yeah, I'm open to bringing Sensabaugh back, sure.
Once again, I'm not married to Artie Burns, but the way I look at this thing right now, until I can get a better handle of what maybe Cameron Sutton is and all like that, I'm keeping him for now.
Yeah, all right.
I obviously I wouldn't bet my house against him.
Obviously, yeah. And then safety, new name showing up there too.
Right? Yeah, just for a lack of losing. I figured I'd throw a little twist in there, right? Kind of point for the fence, if you will, here, because you go all chalk. You're obviously not. I mean, look, there's probably going to be 7. There might be 6, 7 names on this list that on my 53 that don't make it for one reason or the other, injury or just getting cut or whatnot. Sean Davis, Terrell Edmonds, Marcus Allen. It certainly feels like those 3 are locks. Who's going to be that other guy?
Yep. And you have PJ.
I have PJ Locke in there, who, by the way, you profiled. So why don't we use that as a segue? And look, Jordan Dangerfield has embarrassed us for several years now, but sooner or later, when is the sand's going to run completely through that hourglass?
I'm not sure it's going to be this year. I think Dangerfield's going to make my roster. Yeah, Locke, I mean, is a classic run and hit dude, a good athlete, a punishing hitter. He'll try to ruin your day, but the problem is his tackling technique is so poor and so inconsistent, he misses as many as he makes. But he's a guy that's versatile, played a lot of slot, played single high, used some blitzes a little bit. Certainly will support the run hard and has some traits that's going to make him attractive on special teams, but he's going to have to be more consistent. You're going to have to reel him in just a little bit to play with better technique and finish some of these chances.
Yeah, going to be an interesting player to watch. Any other safeties worth maybe talking about?
Well, I don't know what exactly they're going to do with Cameron Kelly and Jack Tocho. I'm not sure if they're going to play corner or safety. I think safety is probably ideal for both of those guys. I think they've been referred to as corners at some point or another whenever they've been signed, but those are some names probably to watch out for, Kelly and Tocho.
And obviously those back-end guys got to be able to be special teams contributors, and that's where Jordan Dangerfield sticks his head back up in this race as well, too.
Yeah, I think to see Dangerfield off, I don't know, that's a tough sell.
I keep trying to push him off, and you turn around, and there he is.
There's a get no respect.
It's like do you remember the Bud Ice Penguin? Doobie doobie doo. Do you remember those commercials?
No,
Are you old enough?
I don't think I am.
Lord,
you're very old, Dave. You're very old.
I know. You turn around and there's Jordan Dangerfield's the new Bud Ice Penguin. I think only maybe a third of the people listening to the podcast maybe get that reference there.
Being generous for the third.
You think we have that young of a listenership?
I don't know. It varies, I'm sure. I don't know the numbers.
I wonder if we got 100 people to chime in, how many of them would be over 40 and how many of them would be under 40?
Yeah, maybe give us a shout. Let us know.
All right, specialist. I mean, chalk all the way here. Chris Boswell, Jordan Berry, Cameron Canaday. Not Boswell and Berry probably far, not as locked as probably many would suggest. But look, Berry did sign a 2-year contract. I mean, he's very cuttable. Because of the signing bonus, guaranteed money in that, so it's not, it wouldn't. No one should be shocked if he winds up being cut. I still view Jordan Berry as being maybe the safer of him and Boswell, but at least it appears as though they signed an undrafted free agent. I know you wrote a little bit about him today, so I'll let you open up the floor to you on him. The undrafted free agent kicker that they brought into, I don't know, will he push Boswell?
I don't know. We'll see. Kickers are fickle. We don't know how Boswell's going to turn out. Maybe Boswell will have figured everything out in offseason to kind of recoup and all that. But yeah, Matthew Wright was probably going to be his biggest competition. Undrafted rookie free agent from Central Florida. Now we know Matt McCrane is there, but it's just hard to see McCrane really giving an actual push to Boswell, given his weak leg overall. But Wright, I know a name that most people didn't know and wasn't considered as a top 10 kicker in this draft, but somebody that really rewrote the record books at Central Florida. Has the records for points, consecutive PATs made, ties first in field goal percentage. I think has hopefully a good leg. He doesn't have a lot of experience kicking 50 plus, but he has made one 50-yarder in his career, and a guy that was really consistent throughout his career. I mean, UCF won 25 straight games the last 2 years, and you don't do that without having a reliable option at kicker. And then interesting side note too, aerospace engineer, loves space, been to NASA, would love to go on Mars. I saw one video, he would love to be an astronaut and be the first men to walk on Mars. Him and Josh Dobbs will pal it around, I'm sure.
Him and Josh Dobbs would have conversations that just blow my mind, wouldn't it?
Yes, they would. But we'll see. We assume that Boswell will win it. We hope Boswell wins it. That's the ideal situation. But we'll see if they carry 3 to training camp. My bet is no. My bet is McCrane will go. We'll see what happens throughout the spring and how guys look. And then at punter, you got Jordan Berry versus Ian Berryman. It's Berry versus Berry. Two Berries enter, one Berry leaves.
That's good. 2 berries in or 1 berry leaves. You said he didn't attempt many 50-yard field goals?
Yeah, I think maybe 3 or 4. 2 of them got blocked. I don't know, if that was a trajectory issue or a blocking issue. He had a 50-yarder against Michigan blocked, a 54 versus SMU blocked. He made the one against UConn a couple of years ago. He didn't attempt a 50-yarder last year, so chances were few and far between. But with an offense that high-powered and put up points, probably not getting a lot of chances to kick from 50 plus.
How did you look at any of his kickoff depths?
I saw the numbers. He did do kickoffs all 4 years as a 4-year starter, redshirt freshman. So he's done it. I don't know exactly what his numbers are. He recovered a fumble last year in a kickoff, so that was cool.
There you
against
go.
SMU.
I can't believe we're talking about kicker tape here.
Hey.
We're that thorough, right?
Again, yeah, we're nothing if not thorough, like we said earlier.
All right.
And the last quick point on Matthew, right? He's from Pennsylvania too. He went to UCF, I think the whole Florida Kennedy Space Center thing there, but from Lancaster, PA. So he's kicked in some of those PA fall-winter games before.
All right. So, hard to argue against a 53-man roster prediction with all this chalk in it, right?
Yeah, again, I might put Dangerfield on there, Artie Burns. That just gives me some indigestion just looking at his name on there. I might change up the offensive line a little bit, but nothing too crazy. I think most, obviously, and that's how it goes. There's only a couple spots that are going to be open for most teams, especially one built like this that was heavy in free agency. But, nothing too crazy is going to change in my roster prediction for probably Monday.
All right, any of these other undrafted free agents you want to talk about?
I think we'll talk about it more on Tuesday. I want to go through some more over the weekend. I watched Locke. I watched Brumfield last night. A guy that played hurt, so his senior tape's kind of tough to gauge. Just a strong dude, likes to finish. His nickname is Bruiser, and he likes to finish those blocks, but a marginal athlete that struggles to redirect and change directions.
Okay, and what else do we have to talk about today?
I think we're just going to roll into reader emails here and go to a couple more. I know we didn't get to too many last time, but we're about an hour 15 into this thing, so I think we can do a couple more reader emails.
Okay, and we will start with, if I can pull up the email machine here. Okay, Shannon Gonzalez writes in, congrats on hitting some record numbers here. Heard a couple of names thrown out in free agency. Trey Boston. Any chance he can be had on the cheap for a dimebacker role? Maybe Kyle Rudolph, ? I assume too expensive, but he's getting up there in age. Just want to hear expert thoughts on that. Unless they're willing to sign for cheap, I just don't see. I just don't see it.
Well, I mean, these guys are probably going to have to start signing for cheap. I don't know. I don't think Boston's going to be that dimebacker role. Boston's weird. He's always on the street. He signs these one-year deals. He plays pretty well, and no one wants him. So, what's the story there? And Rudolph, he's making $7 million. I mean, they're not trading for him and paying him $7 million. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to get him a tight end, it's going to be one of them bottom of the barrel. He can block types, and. Yep. And that's it. As far as the safety goes, I just don't see how people think, barring injury, of course, to one of your starters, I don't see you going out and getting a guy. I mean, look, Trey Boston's not going to play special teams for you, and none of these other ones are that are up there in age. It's probably going to be a little bit of a younger guy for the minimum, barring an injury, barring you needing a starter to come in.
Yeah, that's the way you want to look at it. I know Max Williams just signed with Arizona yesterday, so people want to talk about Max Williams, which I thought was a fine thought. He's off the table, but I'd push hard for Lee Smith. Just give me that blocker tight end, that consistent guy. You know what you're going to get. Add a little experience to that room. I think it'll be good for the Steelers.
Lewis Grove writes in, I found the podcast traveling from Tucson to Bakersfield. I had found SNR a day earlier, June of 2012. So Lewis has been a long-time listener. Your incredible podcast was in the loop. I haven't missed one since. Thanks. Thank you, Lewis. Would our 2019 D have been better or worse or worse position had we taken Chauncey Gardner-Johnson at 83? So, in other words, I guess Chauncey instead of Lane.
Well, thank you, Lewis, for the question here. Lewis has been following the show for the longest time. I would short answer yes. I mean, not even just Gardner Johnson, just still any sort of dime player, because I think there's going to be a more of a chance for a year one impact than, say, Justin Lane or any corner you would have put in there. But they're looking long term as well and trying to find someone that maybe replaces Hayden next year, or just is that really solid depth that can sit and develop for a year. But short answer, yeah, I was surprised to not see that dime player brought in. I thought there would have been more of a year one impact in that safety than the corner.
Chauncey went later than what I thought he was. Mm-hmm. Maybe if I took a deeper dive into his tape, I'd see why. But I was a bit surprised. And look, Steelers really didn't show hardly any interest or no interest in him, throughout the process there. So we'll see, Lewis. We'll see. Stephen Novakovic. Steve was one that came to Vegas one time. I had lunch with him there. Hi, guys. Love your work. The Steelers DB coaches and Keith Butler are responsible for mismanaging. Wait a minute. If the Steelers DB coaches and Keith Butler are responsible for mismanaging the talent we have had in our secondary, I would expect to see poorly performing cornerbacks and safeties leave the Steelers and perform better with other teams. I think Mike Mitchell's season in Indy might be an example of this. What does the data say? Mike Mitchell, though he didn't play, Mike Mitchell had a couple of good games at Indy, right? But then he got hurt, right?
Yeah, but he played well. I think that's the point that's being made here. For starters, with the DB coaches, I wouldn't put too much on them right now because Tom Bradley's in his second year and Terrell Austin was just signed a couple months ago. So, if you want to blame anybody, it's Cardinal Lake, and he's no longer a member of the organization. Keith Butler's a whole different can of worms. It's hit and miss. I mean, look at the draft picks. Some of them have had success elsewhere, Keenan Lewis, but a lot of them haven't, whether that's Shaq Richardson or Curtis Brown, Cortez Allen, Golson. Golson was an injury thing, but, even late round guys like Terrence Frederick and Terry Hawthorne, guys like that. So a lot of it has been poor evaluation from a scouting perspective and then coaches just not being able to work with it. But there's always going to be a mix between, not able to develop guys, not being able to evaluate guys properly.
All right, evaluating Colbert's performance from Danielle Russell. Good day, Alex and D-Train. All right.
When did that come from?
Australian nickname for Dave is D-Train, I guess. All right, I'll take it. It's better than some of the other things I'll be called today. and that's just starting with my wife. All right. Oh, she just stuck her head in here and pointed up a finger. I'm not going to tell you which finger. It says, I wonder, hey, we got listeners in Australia. How do you like me now?
Okay.
She says, I'm all right. All right. I wonder if you could comment on the views of Colbert's performance as general manager as a whole since he took over. Wow, we're going all the way back to 2000, I guess. I feel like he gets a lot of criticism at times, but not sure how he stacks up against the rest of the league. Thanks for all your hard work, Dan. Hey, Dan, thanks for the email from down under there.
Yeah, I don't know how he stacks up either. Obviously, he's one of the longest tenured, so he's got the better, the longer track record than most of the guys around the NFL. I mean, obviously, overall, I think he's done a really good job. And certainly, there are faults and things you can look at short term, recent misses, and Artie and Jarvis Jones, and Golson didn't work out. But I don't know if you can blame that on Colbert necessarily. But whenever you're a guy that's been here this long, I think been consistent. And have a couple of Super Bowl rings to your resume. I mean, it's hard to fault the job overall that Colbert's done.
I guess the easiest way to frame it would be, probably not a lot of people are going to argue with the success he had the first, let's say, 7-8 years, right? In Pittsburgh, but I guess since maybe the the Super Bowl loss to Green Bay would be the way a lot of people are going to try to frame his work now.
Sure.
And look, he's hit and miss on some. Okay, I mean, the attack of free agency is just not going to change. I don't care who's in there, right? I mean, this team is, and especially when you have a franchise quarterback, you're going to be up against the cap. If you're going to try to keep the players that you want to keep, along with a franchise quarterback, and you're going to have to pay those players fair market value, which they have. If you're going to do that, you're going to be against the cap every year. I mean, there's no two ways around it. People say he mismanaged the cap. How? Okay, tell me how you think he mismanaged the cap. Sometimes you have to be able to. You have to have some of the kicking down the can down the road with the cap massaging and all. But several teams in the NFL do it, and unless you have to cut a player before the time's up, Willie Clone or Lamar Woodley, come to mind. But those things are going to happen. You don't go into it saying, I'm going to restructure a contract, and this guy's going to have back-to-back serious injuries where he hasn't had before, that we're going to end up having to cut him with all this dead money here. So that, and then you look at the biggest slight I think people will have is just because they don't understand the cap process and all is how this team functions during free agency and how they prefer to build through the draft more so than free agency. And because of that, you got to hit on these first rounders and either a second or third rounder. And they did miss bad on Jarvis. Yeah, they did miss bad on Artie Burns. You could say, I mean, how big a miss is Bud Dupree? I mean, when you look at the other guys that they could have drafted around him. I mean, I know that's not a great way to frame it, but, and look, I'm not, this should probably be it on Bud Dupree this year anyway, and it'll be a great discussion to have if we're this time ahead of next New Year. We're talking about, well, should they put the franchise tag on Bud Dupree? I mean, obviously no one in their right mind thinks that's going to happen, but it would be a great conversation to have, right? So look, he hasn't won a Super Bowl in several years. I mean, the end-all goal is to win a Super Bowl. And this team hasn't done it since the 2008-2009 season. So if you want to frame it just like that and that alone, then, okay, he hasn't done a good enough job.
Mm-hmm. And that's a fine and fair criticism. But, I know you mentioned so much about, Dupree and Artie and Jarvis. But, my point is you have to look at his whole career, because his career is much more than the last 3-4 seasons. It's a long tenure with so much to remember. So you don't want to forget about what he built, because he took over a team that wasn't very good. That it was a whole fallout between Cowher and Donahue, and trying to replace that relationship, find a quarterback. I mean, they had some bad teams before Ben came along. 6 and 10 seasons, and he built this roster. I mean, he literally built this roster in the early mid 2000s. And he's got to do a better job now. But you don't want to lose sight of what he did to build this team up either.
Look, in my opinion, he gives this team a good chance of winning it all every year.
Yeah, and it helps to have Ben. Obviously, Ben having
sure,
Ben.
Franchise.
Colbert's the dude that chose Ben.
Look, I mean, you got to remember that for all but 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, all but 4 seasons, he's had Ben.
Yeah.
Of his career, so you can ride a franchise quarterback pretty damn far.
But he also built the defense in early Ben
Sure.
years.
And look, make no mistake. Make no mistake about it. And I've always, at some point during the playoffs, I don't care what team you have, you're gonna need your defense to come up big a couple of times, and win you some games. And they just haven't had. They haven't had anything above maybe an average defense at best for years.
Yeah, that's what they got to get back to.
And maybe, this year, did they do enough to be – you don't have to be great. You just have to be one that gets you that sets up. Give me one that can set the offense up in some scoring positions here. Give me a few more takeaways. The sacks and the pressure are there, but they're just not. They're not getting enough takeaways. That's it. Period.
Yep. Exactly.
All right. Anything to add about Kevin Colbert? Look, we'll point out where we think he's had issues in the past, and you could go draft pick by draft pick. Senquez Golson. I mean, that guy never got on the field. Whose fault is that?
Yeah, that one's tough to fault unless there were medical red flags that they just ignored, which I don't believe existed. Him coming out of Ole Miss. I mean, that's just kind of some crappy luck.
Mike Adams. That was a bonehead decision. You knew going in. That there was potential issue there. I mean, who were some of the other early ones? I mean, Marcus Wheaton. I mean, at the time it didn't look like a bad pick. I mean, but that guy, injuries and just didn't translate to the next level. And then cornerbacks. I mean, you go around the league and look at cornerbacks drafted in the fourth round or later. How many of those guys stick?
Well, in Pittsburgh, it hasn't been about them not becoming starters and studs. Obviously, the odds are low. It's just guys that don't make the team at all. Whether that's Terry Hawthorne or Shaq Richardson, guys that just don't do anything. I mean, just total waste. And you can go back through his whole career. I mean, look at Ricardo Coakley in the second round, one of his worst picks. Fred Gibson in the fourth round didn't make the team, fourth round pick, didn't do anything. So you can go through a whole tenure and see a lot of picks. But any GM that's going to be here for 19, 20 years, you're going to have your fair share of bad picks. I mean, that's just unavoidable.
I think you need to look at the first 3 rounds, of picks and analyze, because I think anytime you do anything after that, and even undrafted guys, it's almost like hitting a lotto.
True, but good GMs what separates good GMs are the guys that can find those gems. And Colbert has. I mean, you can go down that list too, Harrison and AB and Parker. List goes on and on.
Look, Bill Belichick does an awful job drafting wide receivers and maybe even cornerbacks as well, But I'll tell you this: he'll go out and get them. He'll go out and get them in free agency.
Yeah, he'll make it work.
All right, thanks for that. Let's see, from Jay Barbatti, are you at all concerned about the defense moving to such smaller athletes when teams like Baltimore and the Patriots are moving to power running? Pretty fun if we fix the pass defense just for the rivals to go run heavy. Who was it that just was constantly commenting on Belichick, and as soon as you think you caught up with him, he morphs another way? Was it Louis Riddick, I think, and maybe some of his draft breakdowns? But yeah, look, you've got to always try to stay ahead of the game, and you take away, you lose a guy like Gronk. Or teams finally start maybe defending these speed guys up on the edge, and then Belichick starts hitting you with these running backs and pass catching backs out of the backfield and stuff like that. So look, today I'll tell you this: you got to have the speed aspect. You got to be able to play in that 20-yard box, as Kevin Colbert says. So we'll see. I mean, obviously one of the concerns on Devin Bush is small. What's going to happen if teams start going back to the fullback,
Mm-hmm.
And trying to get a fullback out and running him more heavily?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's going to be perfect. There's always going to be some area you're concerned about, but you just have to look, what are the prevailing winds of the league? Where's the general direction the football is going right now? And it's the speed, athleticism, and mismatches in space. And that's what you had to do. I mean, could this team win if you're putting a bunch of 250-pound linebackers on the field? No. You know that for a fact. Yeah, you might have issues and things you have to deal with if you have a bunch of 230-pound linebackers, but you got to deal with that more, the speed issue, than you have to deal with the size issue right now. So you got to either evolve with the league, or you can wait for it to circle back. But good luck having the time and luxury of waiting 5 years, 10 years for the league to circle back to a different type of offense. You just can't do that right now.
Right. Speed now, and we'll see.
Yeah, because obviously the size thing wasn't working last year. The John Bosticks of the world weren't working last year. You got to do something different, otherwise you're going to lose your job. Not
right.
Win.
Okay, let's see what else do we have in the email machine here. I think we got pretty much all of them hammered out there that I can see right off the bat there. If you have any, obviously, by Tuesday, send them to us, the Terrible Podcast at gmail.com. And you got anything else to add before we shut this down, Alex?
Nope, I think that's everything. Check out that article on Matthew Wright, though. It's good. I learned a lot about him. I didn't expect to write what I wrote, but it was a good story in there learning about a kicker.
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast at gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. If you want an ad-free version of the site for 1 calendar year, for $25, you can have ad-free version access to the site as well, too. A lot of people, more and more people, we're getting a couple of these a day now, Alex. A lot of people signing up for this is a good, you help the site, and plus you get a little benefit on top of it there. So we appreciate all the people that have taken advantage of that. And until Tuesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.